A little bit about formatting text. Most of this content is based on the core rules for Fantasy Grounds, so this would apply to most rule sets. Also, this also assumes Windows. There are some variations with Macs. Instead of using Control, they have to use a Command key quite often to access shortcut keys. So once you master the shortcut keys, they get a lot easier. So the shortcut keys allow you to much more quickly format text when you need to. Some of this information may not be useful to you if you're new to Fantasy Grounds or you don't intend on doing any content. However, there will be a time where you might want to import stuff, do a conversion, create content, or just to edit something. So there might be something that you will learn here, maybe not, but hopefully this will be helpful. So what I'm going to do is take and copy some text from a website, or you can do this from a PDF, whatever you have available to you. So what I'm saying is that when you copy and paste text from an outside source, the text format may not always be in the proper format, and it might be something that you need to redo or change or fix or whatever it may be. So the first things first is I'm going to go down the list of the different types of shortcuts, and it's important to know what these are, what the functions are. And also keep in mind to access these, if you don't know the shortcuts, you can always right click and you can change paragraph type, and then you can select these manually. So you got tables, links, lists, you have a chat frame, you have heading, and then you have body text. So body text is the standard without any formatting. You can also right click and you can change, you can go to Control+B or Control+C or Control+V, or you might have the Command key if you have a Mac. Those are sort of common Windows formatting stuff for like text. So those are things that you might employ as well. So moving over here. So plain body text. So you can have formatted things like bold, italic, underlined, and the keyboard shortcut is Control+1. So if, for example, you have something like this, and let's say that you have some weird link that you accidentally put in there. Let's see, I'm going to go with Control, let's see, I'll go to Control+3. Anything like that, if it's kind of extraneous or, you don't need it, or maybe it's not what you had in mind, or you could have made a mistake or whatever. So you might have an empty link there. So in order to get rid of that, instead of having to backspace that all the way through, you can highlight the text as long as the text field is unlocked, and you can just kind of come over here and hit Control+1, and that will turn it back to regular text. So sometimes you might drag a link over and it erroneously places an extra link, or you didn't drag it to the right place, whatever. That may cause where you get the wrong formatting. So if you click in these cells and you hit the Control key, and in this case it's Control+1, that will turn it back to regular text without the formatting. So that's kind of important to know, because sometimes when you drag a link over, like something like this, and then you drag another one, it'll do that, and it gives you this extra link here that you didn't mean to bring over. So you can hit Control+Z, or if you've already gone too far and you have a bunch of stuff already in there, what you can do is just kind of bring the cursor up and then hit Control+1, and that will change it to a regular text. So that's how you get out of that. And the other way to do that, of course, is to hit the backspace and manually erase it. You can also highlight the text and hit delete. I mean, there's several ways to do that, but it's important to know your way around in this platform if you're going to do a lot of editing, those sort of things. So Control+1 is your friend if you want to go back to standard text. It'll just change it to regular old plain text. And then you can do Control+B, Control+I, Control+U to do your formatting. So you can change these into different, you can go Control+B, Control+U, Control+I. So you have a lot of options there if you want to do that. So the next step here is the heading. So the heading is this kind of red bold part. That's going to change according to your theme and the color of the text, and also what the rule set developer chose. But all in all, it's just a big header, and it allows you to kind of differentiate between different sections in your content. So the headers are pretty nice when you want to really bold things out and see what's going on. It kind of matches the window header, and then it also provides you with different sorts of options. But the one thing though is you cannot have formatted text in a header. So the header cannot be bold, italic, or underline, and that shortcut is Control+2. So if you wanted to change something, I'm going to type something down here. We'll say header. So if I hit Control+2, that's going to change it to the header format. If I want to go back to just regular text, I'll hit Control+1. So you can highlight that, or you can click on the actual line and change it from there. The next thing is chat frames. So chat frames are kind of cool for Fantasy Grounds if you have dialogue. So if you want to send a message to your players, you can set up these chat frames, and then you'll be able to click on it and it will go into the chat window. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now what these actually do, but the shortcut key is Control+3. So if I wanted to format this information, and then maybe I would put in header data is here. Let's just say I wanted to make this a chat window. So I can go ahead and highlight it and do Control+3, and that will place the text inside. There has been people who asked if you can do multiple paragraphs inside. Yes, you can. I don't think you can do bold, but you certainly can do another paragraph, but you have to hit or press Shift and Enter, and then you can start a new header. You can have a space in there, but if you just hit enter, it's going to take you out of the text box. The other thing to know is if you want to assign a speaker or the person who's saying this text. So if you click on the beginning here, where the beginning of the text is, there's even a parentheses or semicolon there. I'm going to put that right in the beginning and hit Control-Tab, and that's going to give you this little dot in which you're going to type in this case, I'll put DM in there. And what that does is it changes the text output down here in the text. So if I click on it now, it's going to look like the DM is saying this and not just narrated. So in other words, Larry the Turtle, and here's the chat frame plus the speaker. So if I click that, there's Larry the Turtle, and he's the speaker now. If you do not use that, then it's going to look like this, which is basic text. So you cannot have bold, italic, or underlined inside of a chat bubble window. So the next thing is creating lists. So lists can only be bulleted. They can have formatting like bold, italic, underlined, and they are handled Control-4. So you might say, you might want to make these into a list. So with that in mind, maybe you want to take these and make them in a list. So what I would do is you can highlight these and hit Control-4, and that starts it. If you already have a big list, I just usually just back this up and hit enter, and that will start the next section. So you can do stuff like that, and then again you can hit Control-B if you want that to be bold. This top one can be underlined. And this other one down here can be, let's see, Control-B. Yeah, so this one was normal. So you can have that, I'll do Control-I for italicized. So you can have that type of formatting with these bullet points. So it kind of depends on what you need to do here. So the keyboard command is Control-4 for that. Creating links. Now links to me are important. That's what kind of brings everything together in Fantasy Grounds, but they can get very, very annoying when you're trying to drag them over onto a document. So a couple things I've learned over the years is your accuracy and your dexterity where you're actually going to drag this. So if you take this link up here on the top left corner and drag this over to this document, it's going to create a link there and you're good to go. If you hit enter, it's going to create a blank link. So if you want to get out of that, you hit Control-Z, or you can do Control-1, and that will remove that link. The other thing is if you want to help avoid that, you can put the cursor down here or right after the text up here on the second line. You drag this down, and you have to drag it just below this link here. Otherwise, it's going to create that, and that's going to drive you bananas. So let's see, I'm going to go to a different line. And then if you do have a link there already and you just want to drag the link over anyways, you can do that. It'll replace that blank one. Sometimes I'll put a blank in there to remind myself later that I need to come back and link something there. So it can be a blank link temporarily until you're ready to start linking everything at the end, which is what the recommendation is. So once you get everything done and you got to link everything together, if you want to make sure you don't forget to link something like a map or maybe a table or something, you can leave a blank link there, and that will remind you, oh yeah, I gotta bring that table over here. So you can do that too. But one of the things that can get really annoying is when you drag this over, if it's not right underneath the bottom of this text and you drag it, let's say right next to it, it's going to create this blank here. So you have to be accurate as to where you drag it. So dragging it from here to this text, you need to have it right like that actually replaced. But if you want to bring it underneath these two blank ones, you have to kind of come underneath it and do it that way. Otherwise, you're just going to keep getting those blank links and it's going to drive you nuts. And that's hitting enter, so it's just making more of those. So if you want to get out of that, you can hit Control-1, or you can do backspace. So if I do Control-1, that gets rid of these lines that are not supposed to be there. So that's probably one of the more annoying ones. I think Control-5 will make a blank. So Control-5 just makes a blank link. And when you're ready to link something there, you can always drag it over later. You don't have to do it right now. And where you drag it makes a difference. So like I said, if you drag it just under this last character here, it's going to put it in the right place. If you drag it next to it or on top or something like that, it's going to give you that weird blank line. It'll still give you the text, but the link won't be in the right place. So that's just something that you'll have to get used to. It all has to do with left click and drag. It takes a little dexterity, takes a little practice, but you'll get it eventually. But that used to really irk me. I used to get super pissed because I'd be in a hurry and I'm just kind of, trying to get through it, and it would just drive me nuts. But anyways, that's how you get out of that. Just kind of making you aware of that. 'Cause when you drag links over, you got to be kind of accurate where you drag them, and then know how to get out of it. You can hit Control-Z to undo it, or you can hit Control-1 to unformat it so it's just regular text, or you can highlight it, delete it. There's all kinds of ways to deal with it, but it does slow you down. So just kind of let you know. So the next thing after links is tables. Tables are not my forte. I don't really use them very often, but you can make inline tables. So what we can do here is I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and you notice I'm inside of this cell. So when I hit enter, that's going to take me out of the cell. And that's why if you make an extra paragraph inside of a text box or text field, you have to hit shift. Otherwise, it'll take you out. So the first line of a table is Control-6. So that's the first line. And if you want to add an additional cell, then you hit Control-Tab while you're inside of there. And that's going to divide it essentially. So you want to hit that and Control-Tab, and that divides it in half. Then you do it again, hit Control-Tab, and you can divide it up quite a few ways. Now there are ways that you can also increase the width. So maybe you want this first column or second column and third column, these are wider. So you can hit the Control+ key and that will widen it. Okay, so now this cell is wider than the others. However, you cannot go any smaller than that with the initial size. So this initial size, if I hit Control-, that's not going to divide it. So Control- is not going to shrink this any greater than it already is. However, this double one here, I can do Control-, and that puts it back to its normal size. So there is like a standard size, and you can always expand, but you cannot contract any smaller than the initial size. So these things also scale. So when you crunch these windows up, they do scale with it. So there is that. So you got to kind of play with that and see what's useful to you. Inside of here, you can do bold, italic, and underline. So that's how this works. And if you want to start a new line, over here on the right-hand side, I can hit enter, and it will make another cell. But then you'll have to keep doing that same process over and over. So you might ask it to expand this one or double it if you want. So Control plus, that's going to double it. So maybe you want to bring this over to the whole full length here. Just depends on what your needs are for that. But those are the main shortcuts other than copy and paste and those sort of things. So there are some nice tools also built in to help with Fantasy Grounds text formatting. So if you right click and you use this little wand, clean up text, it's going to take out all the extra spaces or most of them. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is right click, go to clean up text, and that will suck it all in and kind of make it nice and formatted. If you're not worried about spaces and you want to clean it up, that's one way to do it. The other way is I'm going to show you kind of like what text is going to look like when you start copying and pasting from a website. So I'm going to bring up a page and I'm going to copy and paste this data from here. And you'll see this quite a bit with text that comes out of PDFs or text that comes out of a website like this. So this is some charms for D&D 5e, but I'm just going to copy this stuff here. Let's just say that you want all this data here. I wouldn't necessarily copy this much, but these are all the different, maybe I want to make a reference manual or something. So if I hit copy on here and I go into Fantasy Grounds, it's not necessarily going to keep that formatting. So if I hit Control V, it's kind of like that, but not quite. So you lose the bold, the format, you got this extra space in here. So that's very common. The other way you can handle this is to go into a program like Notepad++ and do the same thing. And you can also run a script or a command on here where you can go in here and you can actually remove the extra spaces if you want. So there's some formatting options that you can get with a Notepad++ or a real text editor that Fantasy Grounds doesn't have. Like this has a find and replace function. So if you wanted to find and replace, you could do that, and this would make it a little easier. So if you go to find, let's see, where is that? Find and replace. And you can, let's say you wanted to get rid of the word storm. So you can match the case, you can do backwards direction, but essentially you can say you can find next. So let's see if it finds it. And it does. So you can say find all in current document. So it tells you where all these things are listed. So if you wanted to change storm into something else, with that same formula or that same tool, you can ask it to replace or change the spelling or whatever you want to do. So using a real bona fide text editor is a lot more advantageous in the long run. So if you learn how to use these and learn how to do the script for it, like you can make little shortcuts where you just click one button, it does everything for you. There's a few ways that you can do that to help with your formatting. But in Fantasy Grounds itself, we can at least get rid of these extra spots. So we can right click and go to clean up text, and that will get rid of the extra spaces. If you want to combine or join all of this text together and reformat it yourself, you can hit Control A, which is control for everything, and then Control J. And that strips out all of the formatting. So it just depends on what you want to do. And I'm going to hit Control Z to undo it. So that's just something that you'll learn as you use Fantasy Grounds, especially for text editing. It does have some text editing features, but it's not a full-fledged text editor. So you got some basics there. You got some Fantasy Grounds formatting, but you don't have all the fancy find and replace and bold, only these letters. You don't have all that stuff. So this is just a way that you can make life a little easier for yourself when you are text editing in Fantasy Grounds. So I'm going to go back over these shortcuts and then we'll call it a day. So you have Control 1 through 6. Essentially, those are the main types of formatting that you get. And then you just have to get used to the behavior of each one of these control keys. They do behave a little differently. If you have a Mac, you might have to use a different key, like the Command key instead. But all in all, this should be very similar. And then on top of that, Control V, Control J, Control P, Control X. There's all kinds of shortcuts that go into Fantasy Grounds. Like some of them are a little bit more advanced. Like you'll have one where you can insert the cursor, you can copy and paste the content from the clipboard. There's just all kinds of little other commands, and I'll put the link to all of those in the chat after the video posts. All the shortcuts to the Atlassian guide will be there, and you can check those out. But basically, this is the type of thing you're going to go through when you have to do any sort of major editing. And if you accidentally mess something up, you need to get out of it. You hit Control Z. If you need to redo it, it's Control Y. So the Control Z is your best friend if you made a big mistake or you paste the wrong thing or whatever. But if you go beyond that and you find the mistake later, you can always highlight or click on that line and hit Control I, or highlight the text and hit delete. There's so many different ways to do it. But hopefully this is helpful. I haven't gone over this in a while, and I thought that I would share this with you guys in case you're new or you're thinking about starting to convert some of your content over. So this is fairly universal to probably 90% of the rule set, especially the core rules. And if you don't have a certain function or command on Mac, I apologize. I don't know where they're at on changing the mappings for the keys for Macs and Linux, but this is mostly considering Windows. So anyhow, folks, Control 1 through 6 is your friend. Control 1 is basic text. Control 2 is your heading. Control 3, chat frame. Control 4 is to create a bulleted list. Control 5 is to create a blank link, or you can drag links over. And then the table is Control 6, and then you got some formatting in there. So it really depends on what your needs are. And don't forget Control B, Control I, Control U. Those are the other ones. Or if you have to, if you can't remember those, you can always right-click and go into the, you have to have the document unlocked. But if you right-click and go to paragraph types, you can also select from there. Well, once you learn the shortcut keys, it makes this a lot quicker and more efficient. When you have to right click every time, it kind of slows you down. So that's just a heads up and a little tip. All right, folks, take care. Happy gaming. Enjoy the rest.